Start investing in gold and silver at sdbullion.com today and join over 35,000 precious metals investors who have made the switch to the lowest gold and silver prices in the industry. SD Bullion recently claimed a spot on the prestigious Inc. 500, making them one of the fastest growing bullion companies in the United States. With low bullion prices and over-the-top customer service, SD Bullion is setting the standard for precious metals transactions. Visit www.sdbullion.com today. Start saving on every precious metals purchase you make.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with SilverDoctors.com, and back with us today is Bill Murphy from the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA.org, and to LaMetropolCafe.com. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be back, EJ. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, on Wednesday, the Federal Reserve decided not to hike interest rates, so interest rates are just around 0.5 to 0.75%. What is your perspective, Bill, on the market action in the gold and silver markets right after the Fed's announcement?
Well, a week earlier, and they came back a bit and popped a little bit. They didn't do anything spectacular, but I think they were relieved that there was no hint of any imminent rate hike, and I think that took the pressure off the markets, and they've been able to drift higher, and they've already been beaten down, and hopefully it's going to be the beginning of something spectacular, but I guess I always hope that.
Now, the last time I interviewed you, you said that the price target for silver, the short-term price target until it could move higher, was $17.20. Now, we've seen silver break through that. Where do you see silver going from here now?
Well, good point. I think the JPMorgan and the bad guys, as I call them, stopped silver something like 10 times at $17.20 within a few-day period, and also prior to that. So it is important that it's cleared this area. Short-term 19 is the next shot, but the real biggie is, we've talked in the past, is 21, and I think if that level is broken, the JPMorgan crowd will either lose control of this price or have to be forced to cover in the paper market.
So what is JPMorgan's position in the silver market right now? You think they're going to be overpowered?
Well, I hope so. They've been the big short for 5 or 6 years, and we know that, according to reports, they've got a fairly decent physical position, which I think they accumulated in 2010 and on their way and since then. But the silver open interest came down from 225,000 on the COMEX to about 158,000. The specs got liquidated. The price went back below 16 in silver from 21, where it couldn't get through the first time. And now all of a sudden, in the past many days, the open interest is gone up 30,000 contracts. It went up 10,000 contracts in 3 days. It went up more in 3 days, the past 3 days, than it did during the entire move from 16, 17 to 50 in 2010, 2011. And that's because J.P. Morgan backed away from the market, and the price of silver went bonkers. And then when they came back in, it's collapsed again. So they're going to have to get overpowered, or something has to change, because they're right at it again, doing what they've been doing for 6 years.
Now, moving to the gold market, what are some price targets that you're looking at? Like, if gold breaks through this price, then we could see a large jump higher.
Well, 1,200 was an obvious one early, and it finally got through that. The next key level is 1,250, and then I think it could set up to much, much higher ground. Technically, silver's already turned. The chart's a beautiful reverse head and shoulders bottom, and as you mentioned, 720 was taken out, and the buyers are coming in again. And the setup here is for something that a lot of us have been waiting for a long time, but we just want to see it happen instead of just talking about it.
Now, moving to the stock market, the Dow recently broke through 20,000. Now it is slightly below 20,000 again. What is your perspective on this, and what is your outlook for the stock market going forward?
Well, there's some colleagues of mine are much better at this than I am, because look what it's done since the Trump win, contrary to what everyone said, which we've covered, I think, in the past. And it's very hard to say if they're going to inflate the system to save the system, as I believe that what's in play here, in a big picture sense. I know a lot of colleagues looking for this thing to really tank, and it's way overdone and all this stuff, but it just keeps belying what a lot of people on our side think, and I'll leave it up to them. I rather stick with what I'm pretty sure of, and that's that gold and silver are really going to take off and sometime this year in spectacular fashion, and I think gold could go back up to its old high, and silver will take out 50.
I know in our last interview, we talked about just this, that you think the powers that be will inflate the system in order to save the system. Now, recently, Trump was being interviewed, and he was saying that the dollar is too strong, and he was talking about how the Chinese manipulate their currency. And also, just recently, Chris Powell recently reported on this, that one of Donald Trump's top trade advisors, they were saying that the euro was, quote unquote, grossly undervalued. So what is your perspective on how a Trump administration could really bring forward a lot of inflation and make the dollar weaker?
Well, it's so interesting because of, Trump has gold around him in all his buildings, and he's got gold curtains. And if he wanted to really accomplish something big and drain the swamp, as he was talking about, he would go in and just get an audit of U.S. gold reserve, fast and to the point. And if the gold is not there, as God doesn't think it is, at least a good portion of it, or a reasonable amount, it would be a scandal, which is going to happen anyway at some point. He'd get a scandal behind him. He'd take on the bankers and show his bravado there, and the dollar would get killed. It would then help spur all the jobs that he's, so famous for right now, talking about creating in America. Get the dollar down, which is what you're talking about. And that would be one way to do it, and it wouldn't have to show anything about his policies or what it really means. It would just say, it's a fraud. This was done, and we can blame it on other people. And so I don't know if that'll ever happen, but that would be ideal, and I think this is what he's going to need to do to get things really going according to his own dictates.
Now, coming full circle here back to the Fed's non-rate hike just on Wednesday, the Federal Reserve was saying that the inflation rate is still below their 2% target. But in your perspective, is that really true? Because, if what you're saying is true, that we're going to see all this inflation, do you think the government is actually going to report, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, are they actually going to report the inflation? Or are they going to keep saying, no, inflation is really low, below 2%?
Well, it's a good point. I'll tell you. I look around me when I go and paying for things, and the things are going up everywhere. Try going out for dinner these days, and as I mentioned before, for apples, 69 cents. Things are taking off. I know rents around here in Dallas are moving way up, and I think the inflation is much greater than being reported. But I just think that they're going to have to create activity, that things are not as good as portrayed in the mainstream pundit world about our economy, and that they're really going to have to take aggressive action to prevent things from falling apart.
All right. And before we let you go, just one last thing is, how do people prepare for what's coming? If you're saying that, the mainstream is going to be saying things are fine, but really things are falling apart, how do people prepare for that?
Well, so they're going to try to prevent that, and that's just my opinion. But, I'm prejudiced, of course, but, one of the best things about being involved with God is that gold and silver are incredibly undervalued. Forget about everything else. Gold should be almost 3 times what it is now if it kept up with inflation. So the thing to do is just to buy gold and silver now when the sentiment's lousy because of what the Dow has done, and it's just a tremendous opportunity. And when gold and silver go this time, I think it's going to, as I mentioned, it's going to be very volatile and happen quickly. And people that are not on board are going to have a tough time paying up. So now's the time to be paying attention.
Before we let you go, did you want to share with the viewers any last thoughts you had?
Oh, that's pretty much it. I think that was my main one, and the last one we got into, EJ, and I can't stress it enough. And, a lot of us have been so disappointed at what this gold cartel, as we call, has been able to get away with. But they're going to reach that tipping point when it all changes. And it just be that with President Trump in there, it's time for things to change, and he certainly isn't afraid to do things differently, as the whole world knows. So I think it's going to be a big deal, and I'm looking forward to this year playing out as in that manner.
Do you want to share with the viewers where they can find you?
Yeah, my colleague Chris Powell at Audit.org puts out a great array of things, and they can get on that for free. And the Metropole Cafe, I've been at since 1998, and people can sign up for a 2-week free trial and see if it's of value.
All right. Once again, Bill Murphy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, EJ.